why do I need a coach? Why can't I just go out and learn the information on my own, or find somebody who has the information that I most want or need to learn and just learn from that individual? And both of those are very good points, and I hear them often. But the distinction between being self-taught, which I'm an advocate of, and going out and learning from others, which is critical, and coaching is that when you go out and you learn on your own, or you have someone teach you, it's about putting information in. Where coaching is more about drawing resources out of you. And coaching, therefore, is about optimization. And no matter how dedicated you are to learning and development, no matter how self-motivated you are, no matter what type of experiential background you've had, whether very, very good or in some cases quite tragic, coaching is critical for 7 key reasons I want to talk to you about. First and foremost is cognitive dissonance. When we can hire a coach and we go ahead and we take direction from that coach, making micro decisions that are aligned autonomously. In other words, it's not about what the coach wants for our life, it's about what we want for our life. And the coach, as Dr. Roy Sugarman is fond of saying, is not the sage on the stage, but the guide by the side. Every time we make a decision, we give ourselves a bigger and bigger reputation to live up to. And after we make enough decisions that are congruent with what it is that we want to be, have, and do, we start to use cognitive dissonance, which is the emotional duress that ensues when we try to hold 2 opposing perspectives in mind at the same time. We use cognitive dissonance in our favor. The second reason why coaching is really powerful is because of reactance. No matter how sound or reasonable the advice, or even if we're the ones who go out and solicit it, we're usually very bad at adhering to the advice that we get from others, even though the advice is credible or the person that we got that information from is quite credible themselves. And the reason for this is when we make a decision based on someone else's direction, we, to a small degree, give up our freedoms. Now, human beings desire freedom more than almost anything else. As a matter of fact, it's one of our primary drivers, and the reason for this is because if we lose freedom to choose or decide, in very many cases in human history, it meant we sacrificed the probability that we would survive and procreate. For example, let's say we're walking through a bush and we hear a sound. Well, you know what? That could be the wind, or it could be a saber-toothed tiger. And let's say we're walking with members of our tribe and we turn around and, well, where's George? George is gone. Tragic, right? But if as a tribe we didn't have the ability to start to develop distinctions, kind of like don't go in that bush, and we could find alternate pathways to get to where we needed to go, the more distinctions we had and the more freedoms that we had to make decisions based on those distinctions, well, the greater the probability that we would survive, and hopefully the tribe would thrive. The third reason why coaching is critical is because of threat. Very often, when we perceive a situation that causes us fear, anxiety, frustration, the heightened activity in the limbic system, specifically the amygdala, decreases our access to the prefrontal lobes, which is our thinking, deciding, rationalizing executive center of the brain. And when we, quote unquote, make good decisions, that's the part of the brain that we're utilizing. So very often, if we're approaching a situation that causes us anxiety, a coach can ask questions and help us to upregulate and gain access to the centers of our brain that help us make sound decisions that are congruent, again, with what it is we want to have, what we want to be, and what we ultimately want to do. The fourth reason is confirmation bias. No matter how objective we think we are, and no matter how much we genuinely desire to learn information for positive motives, maybe because we want to make a contribution, if we've been passionate and we've been committed to a certain career, certain values, a certain course of action throughout our lives, the more committed we are, the greater biases we possess, and a lot of times unwittingly, we sift through information, our own growth and development, looking for things that align with what we believe, and we dismiss things that don't. This confirmation bias is one of the greatest limiting factors to our own development, because in today's day and age, it's not just about learning more, but it's about innovation and differentiation. And if we operate through a confirmation bias, we can never truly develop different thinking. Not truly different in the way that red would be different from a green, but the way blue would be different from a light blue. It's a version of what we already think and what we already know. It's not based on our ability to take in information and reframe the way we see the world, develop new distinctions, and therefore new possibilities in how we function within it. And another reason why we desperately need coaching sometimes is because of unwitting blind spots. I've talked many times about the research of Chabris and Simons, and what's interesting about this research is it shows how even the most well-meaning individuals can have blind spots to noticing what's right in front of their face. As a matter of fact, the more focused and well-meaning we are, the greater those blind spots can be. So in this research, Chabris and Simons took groups of students and they made them watch a video of two people passing the ball back and forth to one another. And they told these students to concentrate very hard on counting with precision the number of times the ball was passed from one person to the next. Now, in each and every frame, there was a guy in a gorilla suit who ran into the center of the picture, right in between the two people passing the ball, stood there for a moment, beat his chest like a gorilla, and ran off of the frame. Now, every student watching was exposed to the gorilla for the same duration, which was about 40% of the length of the entire film, yet 50% of the students watching failed to notice the gorilla until they were shown the video over again when they weren't hyper vigilant in counting how many times the ball was passed back and forth. And a lot of us are hyper focused for good reasons and the right intentions on what type of romantic partner we want to attract, where we want to go within our career, type of person we want to be, or focusing on closing the sale. But when we're so hyper focused on what we're trying to achieve, very often we miss novel, relevant, and highly significant things that are occurring simultaneously right in front of us that are of extraordinary value to us. And coaches help us diminish, or in some cases eliminate, those blind spots that stop us from forming the distinctions that open up greater possibilities. Number 6 is accountability. Sometimes just the fact that you're accountable to another person on a weekly or a daily or bi-weekly call increases your level of commitment to the thing that you resolve to do. And anybody who's played sports or had any type of coach, a music instructor, a dance teacher, knows the feeling of increasing your level of performance just by having your instructor or your coach watch how you execute what you were taught to do. And coaches very often can do that for us. And number 7, the final reason, is resolution of conflicts. A lot of times we have assumptions about why other people or why ourselves even don't do things. And sometimes these assumptions, well, they sound a lot like accusations. And we might say something like, well, people don't do what they know they should do because they're lazy or they're unmotivated or they lack work ethic. Wow, these are not very flattering. And very often these assumptions lead to certain modes of communication with ourselves and others that perpetuate, not alleviate, the patterns we're trying to get rid of. So they actually create more of what we don't want. When in reality, what people most of the time lack is not some attribute that we think we possess or somebody else possesses, but alignment between what we're trying to do and who we most want to be. And what I mean by that is when behaviors contradict, or a goal that we have even contradicts a value that is of our highest priority, we start to wage a war against ourselves that we rarely win. And even if we do manage to win the battle, we lose the war because we exhaust ourselves, and when we achieve what we think we want, we find ourselves very dissatisfied and disillusioned. And the greater the disillusionment, the greater the hesitation to go ahead and set new goals in the future. And a great example of this is, think about someone who really wants to get in shape, but their highest value, see, their goal is to get in shape because they think they'll feel better, they'll look better, and it's probably a conscientious decision to make for overall health, but what they value most is relationships. And they feel subconsciously that if they start going to the gym, they won't be able to go to the pub, or they won't be able to go out to a restaurant to eat, they won't be able to have a drink with their friends, and they're afraid that this is going to impede the relationship with their friends, or might even over time erode these relationships completely, and relationships are what they value most. Or a deeper and even more visceral example is, let's say somebody joins the gym because they want to lose weight. And there's somebody who always goes up and down, yo-yo. They lose weight, then they gain it again, lose weight, gain it again. And their trainer says, well, you just lack commitment. But in reality, the weight loss provides a rationale because they think that the reason why they lost intimacy in their marriage is because, wow, look at all the weight I've gained. I've really let myself go. If I can lose the weight, I'll restore the intimacy I once had. But what if the deeper fear is that, what if I lose the weight and my intimacy in my marriage is still broken? Then the relationship I'm in might not be the right one for me, and that's terrifying because this individual's highest values are relationships and love. And to break apart their marriage would mean to them that they violated their highest value. So every time they lose that weight and gain it back, it's not because they're not committed. It's because they have a hidden commitment to their marriage that might even be greater than their verbal commitment to their weight loss. So for all of these interpersonal dynamics, coaching can be quite useful because change is not often as simplistic and linear as we would like to believe. So sometimes we need someone who can help us tap into the resources that are necessary for us to be at our most resourceful in making decisions that are congruent with what we want to do, what we value, and who we most want to be.